first thing I would say is that please, please, please don't look upon the poor as objects of welfare or charity, but look upon them as productive people who are going to help developing our country. Number two, I would look at the private sector and tell them that look, the urban poor, I'm not talking about the rural poor, the urban poor are a market. They are a large market, and if you start looking upon them as a market, it's going to be good for both you and for the market. That's all.
Right. I'm going to just pause you to get answers from both of you on that. First of all, is our corporate and India, Inc. in a sense, starting to see the second part of that? The urban poor are a market for us, and we have to try and figure out how to connect with them.
Yes, very much so. And I would say even the first one. There are many very great examples of corporations who are seeing the rural as well as urban and rural poor as partners in their enterprise, not as markets to sell things to, but as producers and part of their value chain, distribution chain, procurement chain, and so on. So creating incomes, not just selling to them. So that's what's happening. And the difficulties for themselves also, scaling it up, I've already given.
For the two of you, the part about not treating the poor as people who deserve charity. So no more free power, free rice, 2 rupees rice. All of these make for great political slogans, but is there going to be a time in the near future where actual delivery and then charging for that delivery will become politically attractive?
I think that there are a lot of us who don't believe in subsidies, who don't believe in freebies, and I think we just have to work this out within the ministries themselves, because it's always election time that produces the subsidies. Otherwise, it doesn't really happen in the middle of any organization. But Vikram, I want to deviate a little in what he was saying about the urban poor. Companies more and more are coming now and doing their rural thrusts. And it's very interesting because when I was Minister for Sports, I started something called the Gramin Yuva Kendras, because I believe that sports needs to go down to the complete rural level. And we formed Gramin Yuva Kendras at every block level. And unfortunately, our sports budget, because it was not considered a great department, our sports budget was not a great budget. So we could only give about 600 rupees to the man who mans the Gramin Yuva Kendra. But in came Maruti, who was saying that they wanted to do this rural trust. So I rang up the head of Maruti and I said, could you not help by taking the man who is at every Gramin Yuva Kendra and helping him with his salary, and he could be your salesman for rural, for your rural trust, and it's working out brilliantly. So, you know, it's just a question of, as the Schwab Foundation and as Uday Kemkar's foundation talks about, this innovation that we talk about, where these four are innovating and have formed the social entrepreneurship through innovation.
But just, Sachin, I guess part of the problem that both of you would have, and people who are wanting to get the right things done in your individual parties, the problem which you would have is, if you were to stay away, Congress, let's say, was supposed to stay away from saying subsidies, somebody else will do it. Is there any chance that all political parties can start to have a little more backdoor consultation that can we stay away from this and doing the right things? I mean, everything becomes a political issue. Maybe if there's more cooperation behind the scenes, off the stage.
I think first of all, it's very wrong to paint all subsidies in the same brushstroke. I am for subsidies as long as they're targeted, they're relevant, and they reach the person or the people that they're supposed to.
But Sachin, you're perfectly well aware that that's a very small amount of the subsidies, which actually get to the people whom they're targeted to.
Absolutely.
What would be the percentage according to your own?
I don't want to give a number on it, but certainly a lot of subsidies that government gives out, from state governments, central governments, a lot of it is just flat, it's bureaucratic flat. And if you want to give a 2 rupee subsidy to somebody, it costs you sometimes 4 or 5 rupees to get it to that person. So we have to streamline that. But I don't think we can write off all subsidies, because there are people in millions who still depend on this subsidy for their daily survival. So I think just to pull it off straight away in one go may not be the right way forward. That's my personal opinion. I think you don't agree with me, but that's my personal opinion.
No, but I'm saying that he agrees with you actually.
No, I would certainly agree with him that there is the bottom 10-15% which does require. But unfortunately, it's the 10-15% who are missing out today, and it goes to somebody else.
No, but why is it happening? Why are subsidies being given? Because the government or yojanas, my Hindi is getting better than my English ever since I was in MLA. The yojanas are not percolating down to that 10 to 15% for which the yojanas were made for. So if we can only, which he was talking about, Flab, if we can only firm up, brush up government and brush up everything that needs to be done, which I have a feeling that these guys who are coming up in this new breed of politicians coming up, it is going to happen. There is going to be that flabless government that's going to be there, because subsidies in the end come because the percolation level is not there.
I certainly hope you're right, but I think my dispute with what Sachin was saying comes from a certain amount of skepticism as to whether that is going to happen. Well, certainly in my lifetime, so I'm not sure what's going to happen later. How about you? What would you be your ideas?
I'll tell you about the sleepless part. Sometimes you wake up in the newspapers. For me, for 3 months, January, February, March, the government is a competitor, straight off competitor. And what happens is government opens a shop in its renewable energy development centers in every capital of every state and starts selling goods from the shop at a subsidized rate with absolutely no respect to after-sales service, supply chains, who's going to repair it. And what happens over the years is people have lost faith in the technology because somewhere the solar panel is not working, that a cook stove is not working, a biogas system is not working because he or she bought it without the help of a local maintenance person. And government should not be in the business of business. It should be in the policy making. That's one thing. And use those subsidies which it wants to in a very smart way. Remove subsidies, capital subsidy, put it into financial institution, reduce the interest rates, incentivize the financial institutions, and also the end users. You have a long-term sustainable route. Second is, in 2001, you wake up one day, you have tax on solar. You have 4% tax and 12% tax on solar. I don't know how much the government will make money on putting taxes on solar because solar is swept as a power, which is not correct. Lot of areas in the villages in our country, solar decentralized, 1 light, 2 light is basic good form of electricity to them. And if poor people have to pay taxes on those solar systems, it just doesn't make. We've represented from last 8 years. Remove that. And especially when you sell it from Karnataka to Ahmedabad, not only you pay the transportation cost, 12% CST plus octroi of Ahmedabad, 3.5%. So the slum dweller actually pays for 12,500, which costs actually in the factory 22,000 rupees. Just doesn't make sense. The tax structure needs to be looked at very, very seriously.
I have to confess, it didn't make much sense to me either. Would you agree with that? It's something worth looking at. Okay, fine. So we're all in agreement now, sir. Now, all we're going to do is have a private chat with Mr. Damian at some point and see if he also agrees.
It's non-conventional energy, right? And you're supposed to actually help non-conventional energy because it's such a niche area. And then you slap the taxes on. That's not making sense.
Fine. So I'm glad all of us are in agreement, and as I said, hope that the finance minister will also agree at some point. How about you?
First, A thing I would say that government should get off from the poor people and not at all be bureau. It sounds very extreme statement, but I would say that when our women, they ask for their own property paper, Revenue Department doesn't give them, they have to go for at least nearly 30 days every day, losing their working day and want the property papers which they are themselves owning it. So this bureaucracy and regulation, you cannot address poverty if the extent we have it in our country and the way the poor people are affected about it. And second thing I would like to say is that there should be a diversification of income of farm household, which is so very important. That in farming household, if you want to reduce the suicides, there should be another way of income generation, and people are ready. I mean, we have seen that at Mandeshi, around 17,000 women started a micro businesses. And unfortunate thing is that we do not have any infrastructure for that. No power supply, because in Maharashtra we have 12 hours of load shedding. You cannot run any enterprise without this. No water. And licensing is so difficult, so how would these people would start any businesses? And if you want to do immediate thing is that see that how micro and small businesses starts, and there's no other infrastructure for giving them a training what we are doing it. So I think these are the two important factors. Thank you.